Hello, and welcome back to the Wild Gardens. I'm your host, Martin Hale. Today, we're visiting a very special place, a very interesting place, a very famous place, the Antelope Valley, California Poppy Reserve. You know, we've looked at wildflowers in the deserts of the Anza Borrego, in Joshua Tree, in the East Mojave, in the West Mojave. We've seen flowers in the chaparral regions of the Santa Ana Mountains and the Elsinore Mountains, down in San Diego County. We've looked at wildflowers in the mountains of San Bernardino and in the San Gabriel forests. Today, we're coming to a place that many people know about. We'll find out later how many visitors a year they get. I'm curious myself. It's a beautiful, spectacular spot and unique in all the state. Let's go inside, meet some friends, and see what they have to offer us. I've come to the Poppy Reserve many times in past years, but I had no idea of its history. Before we see the poppies and other wildflowers, let's go inside and take a look at the visitor center. Once inside, we begin to get a hint about the Poppy Reserve. The displays tell us what goes on here at the reserve, about both the flora and the fauna. We also get to meet one of the original founders of the Antelope Valley, California Poppy Reserve, Dorothy Bolt. What a pleasure and privilege it is to speak with her. Dorothy is 97 this year and proud of it, and I don't blame her one bit. Now, I'm here with Dorothy Bolt, and
Yes.
Dorothy, as I understand, you are one of the founders of the Poppy Reserve.
I could imagine that's correct.
Would you like to tell me what that was like then and what you did?
Oh, mercy. It started so many years ago. 1972 is when we organized the Wildflower Preservation Committee under the umbrella of the Lancaster Women's Club. And we just decided to do whatever we could do to help get money go in order to buy property and save the state flower, which is the poppy. And we did all kinds of things. The first thing that we did was Jane Pinero drew a, which we called a decal, and one of our members, Lillian Casson, who was very, very talented, and she went to the AAA and asked where they were having their decals made. So somewhere down in San Fernando, and so we got, I don't know how many thousand, probably 12,000 decals. And then we had a good treasurer who didn't give you them out unless she got $1 back. And so that's how we started getting money together.
The staff who work here, with the exception of the state park rangers, are all Primdia volunteers. Let's talk to two of them now to learn more about the reserve's history. One of the things I want to find out is what this word Primdia means. I'm standing here with Gretchen Winfrey and Mary Wilson, two more docents from the reserve, and I have some questions for both of you, but I'd like to find out about some letters I keep hearing come up, Primdia and Priya. Would you tell me how that works, Gretchen?
Well, when our nonprofit was originally incorporated, it was just the Poppy Reserve Interpretive Association,
Priya.
PRIA.
I see.
And then we had a superintendent who thought we should also be helping out some of the other state parks in the area. So we got together and redid our bylaws and our articles of incorporation and became the Poppy Reserve Mojave Desert Interpretive Association, because we actually now serve not only the Poppy Reserve, we serve Saddleback, and we serve Tomokani, and we serve Mitchell Caverns, which is way out.
That's East Mojave.
Yeah, way out.
Been there, yeah.
And then the Arthur B. Ripley Desert Woodland, I think is its name, which is
Right.
really a wonderful place too.
Okay, and that's Primdia.
That's Permdia.
That's that,
yeah.
okay, that's that. So that's how
The
that
Poppy
works.
Reserve Mojave Desert Interpretive Association. Yes.
Okay, and I saw one more thing that I'm curious about. Mary, maybe you could tell me. I see a person's name on this building.
Yes, it's Jane Pinero, and Jane was instrumental in getting a lot of things done here in the valley, but one of her dreams was to have a poppy park. And I'll go back in history a bit so you know a little bit about Jane. She and Joe Pinero were married in 1930s in Pasadena. He was a dairyman, and he got a job up here at the Pancho Barnes Ranch, which is now Edwards Air Force Base, and he was the dairyman. And they came and they spent the first winter here in what Jane called the tiny shanty. And it was just a little tiny, she said they nearly froze to death up here because living in Pasadena, you don't have cold winters. But then the spring came. Joe was working, and so she started wandering out into the desert area there. And she noticed the flowers and fell in love with the flowers. And she started sketching and painting. And her media, it was watercolors. And she was a self-taught artist. Well, she had these wonderful paintings that she was doing, but she couldn't find the names of the flowers because there weren't a lot of books out yet about the wildflowers of the desert. So she started doing research and became a self-taught botanist. Then in the 1960s, and she was involved with the Lancaster Women's Club and with Dorothy, who you've met, and that group, and they decided that they would have a wildflower center because so many people were coming up to the valley to look and didn't know where to look. So the group got together. She would display her paintings, and they would hand out maps and let you know where the area was of that day, where you could go. And then during this time, while they were doing this, they had a professor who came in, and he looked at Jane's paintings, and he said, he was a botanist, and he said, these are the most botanically correct paintings I have seen. You could use these as instructions in classes. Well, Lancaster Women's Club got together. They formed the Wildfire Preservation Committee at the time. And so Jane and Dorothy and the whole group, they got together and they decided that they would buy 125 of Jane's paintings. And so that was their original idea, was to raise the money to buy the paintings. Mm-hmm. All those paintings, I believe the total was $5,000. Wasn't that amazing? Anyway, during that same time, the State Parks and Recreation's environmental group had just finished a 5-year study on where the best place in California for the state flower was grown consistently, and it happened to be Fairmont Buttes and the Antelope Buttes, which is what we're standing on right now. So Jane went back, and the committee decided that not only should they raise money for the paintings, but they should also raise money for the land to buy this property for a poppy park, which was one of Jane's ideas. Well, they did it. The paintings you see in the alcove over there are part of the 125 that were originally bought by the Wildflower Preservation Group. They bought those, they donated it to the state parks for keeping them and displaying them. Then they also got over 1,000, I think it was 1,400 acres, and they donated that to the state parks for the park. And then it was named the Antelope Valley, California Poppy Reserve. That's the name of this. And in 1976, when this was dedicated, they also said there will be a building, and it will be named the James S. Pinero Interpretive Center.
That is quite a story. So that's how it started.
That's how it started.
Here are two more longtime Primdia volunteers. They are Jerry Coleman and Pat Simmy. Jerry tells us more about the reserve and what they do. Tell me about this.
Okay, this is a brochure from our Wildflower Foundation. And we hand this out, giving them a little history of the foundation, when it was formed, and so forth. And on this, we have provisions for donations to our Wildflower Foundation. And our money goes to buy land for the park, and now recently we've amended our bylaws so we can help improve the park here.
I see.
And so we give these out to people just when they come to the park. It's just a handout. And also, among these donations, we get donations for memorial benches here. And they're positioned along the trails here, which we have 8 miles. I think I'm right on that, 8 miles of trails. And believe me, when you're hiking out there on the top of the trail, the furthest one, a bench is a welcome sight. Just have a little rest.
Let's go outside now and enjoy the scenery. The California poppy was designated the state flower in 1903. The reserve itself was dedicated on April 24, 1976, the bicentennial year of the United States of America. And the answer to that question I had about how many people visit the reserve during the spring? Up to 100,000. The Poppy Reserve is set up with a series of trails that allow us to walk through it and enjoy all the views. We can't go off the trails because we would be trampling the flowers and compromising the habitat. Look at the poppies. What a sight! You know, I could describe this place and talk about it all day long, and without pictures, it would be meaningless to anyone who hasn't seen it. With pictures, it's better. But even pictures don't do the Poppy Reserve justice. It has to be seen in person. Each year, the spring bloom is different. Sometimes there are masses of goldfields. Those are the yellow patches you see. And there are years when owl's clover form great masses on the hillsides. First and foremost, though, are the poppies. Speaking of poppies, we have two types here in the reserve. One type is the annual poppy. They're around for the spring season, then die off. The next year, if the rains and other conditions are right, a new bloom comes from the seeds of the previous years. Perennial poppies are the other type. They live here all the time and bloom during the late winter through the spring season. There are more things to see here than just poppies. As we saw in earlier pictures, there are other flowering plants that grow here at the reserve. Owl's clover lives here. Owl's clover is one of the more popular flowering plants of the reserve, I'm told. The two-toned maroon bracts with the white tips make for a very interesting looking plant. Not beautiful maybe, but interesting and pretty. Of course, that's just a personal opinion. As much fun as they are to look at as individuals, it's when they mass in good years that they become truly wonderful. While looking at some of these breathtaking views of the reserve, we see these huge patches of yellow covering the hillsides. Chances are that a lot of these yellow patches are masses of gold fields. I found this member of the sunflower family in many types of habitat in Southern California, but I must say they seem to love it here. They can grow so densely that there can be up to 800 plants per square foot. The flowers have a nice fragrance. Certain desert areas do seem to be particularly conducive to them. One of my favorite wildflowers is the one we commonly call cream cups. I generally expect to find them where the California poppies grow, but that's not always the case. I've found healthy stands of them in the upper Joshua Tree area where there were no poppies. By and large, though, I mostly find them growing in and amongst poppy fields, or at least near them. They are, in fact, in the same family as poppies. Large groupings are very nice to see, but when observed as individuals, close up, they are exquisite. You can find them in several variations of color, from all white to white and yellow, and in an endless variety of patterns in those two colors. I was once told by a botanist friend of mine that he saw them with a blush of pink on the petals. Whatever the color, aren't they beautiful? I'm more accustomed to finding red maids in a chaparral or coastal sage habitat, but here they are at the reserve. I usually find them in grassy meadows or hillsides. They always seem to be growing as individual plants among other plants instead of masses or bunches. You'll never have a problem finding them because of their brilliant color. Another plant found here at the reserve is the fiddleneck. The fiddleneck is aptly named. The top of the plant is coiled like the neck of a fiddle. It unfolds to make the flowers easily available to pollinators. In Southern California, I found fiddlenecks of one variation or another from the deserts to the hills and everywhere in between. The young stalks were crushed and eaten with salt by Native Americans as a source of greens. There are several kinds of lupin plants growing on or near the reserve. Lupins are a member of the pea family, botanical name Fabaceae, and are common all over Southern California. My favorite lupin by far is the pygmy-leaved lupin. I've always called it miniature lupin. It's a perfect example of why common names don't matter. The botanical name is Lupinus bicolor, or to translate, two-color lupin. That perfectly describes the plant. Like many other wildflowers, these are relatively small. And if you don't see them enlarged, you miss the delicate beauty of the flower. When I see this pygmy-leaved lupin up close like this, it reminds me of why it's my favorite lupin. They're beautiful little fellows. It's surprising how many different kinds of plants grow here. At first glance, it seems it's just poppies, or goldfields, or owl's clover. The fact that you can find so many different kinds of plants here is like an added bonus to something that's already fantastic. Here's one that's found in nearly all of Southern California's habitats. Let me be more specific. In the mountains, chaparral, and coastal sage, it's called blue dick. They call them that here, too. In the deserts, they're known as desert hyacinth. These plants are a bulbed perennial and a member of the lily family. It stores food and water in a bulb buried in the ground. Native Americans dug up and ate the bulbs. After the spring rains, it grows long stems, and these pretty flowers bloom. They truly are a beautiful sight when seen up close. Another good-looking flowering plant found here is the lacy phacelia. The brilliant light blue flowers really dress up the scenery when they display themselves in small masses. They're a member of the waterleaf family. This plant is fairly common in the West Mojave Desert. I've always liked gilias, and the Davy gilia is a standout example of Gilia magnificens. They can be found in small clusters or individually in the Poppy Reserve. Gilias are very difficult to identify. For our purposes, we'll call this one Davy gilia, but I can't swear that it is. The problem is that so many of these plants look alike. Let's go back and revisit the namesake of the reserve, the California poppy. Remember, I mentioned that these plants come in both annual and perennial forms. Well, another interesting thing about poppies is the varieties of colors they can be found in. Poppies are widespread throughout a good part of California. I'm sure that's one of the reasons it's the state flower. Let's take a final look at some of Jane Pinero's paintings. I stand in total awe of the intricate detail of the watercolors, combined with their beauty as artwork. I admire so much the mastery she achieved over her subject. I have traveled over many of California's floristic regions, but I have to say the Poppy Reserve takes the cake. It isn't just about the poppies, but about the preservation of the land itself. Many people over the course of time have lent their love and labor to provide and ultimately maintain this natural treasure. If you're like me and like to get down on your hands and knees to get a closer look at the individual plants, the reserve has a wide variety of different species for inspection. In short, for the wildflower lover, this place has everything.
To order a DVD or video of this program, call 1-800-876-2447 or visit our website at www.chiptaylor.com.